Nikon Z9. I saw that video that they released where they recorded 8K in the jungle, which was probably hot, for over an hour. Let's talk about it. Welcome to my channel. If you're new here, I talk about cameras, old and new, specifically in terms of video. And I'm a big fan and actually own the Canon R5. So I'm a Canon user, but I'm also multi-camera. I've got Panasonic, I've got Samsung, I've got Blackmagic, which is what I'm recording this on right now. But we're going to talk about the Z9 8K and kind of why I record every video that I do in 8K, minus this one because I want to actually hold the R5 in my hands as I speak or whatever. But let's get into it. So the Nikon Z9 is the upcoming camera. That's going to be Nikon's high-end mirrorless camera. We're all looking forward to that camera and seeing what it can do. Now, Nikon has already entered the game of mirrorless with the Z6 and the Z7 and the Z6 Mark II and the Z7 Mark II. And those cameras are pretty good, in my opinion, not exactly game changers, but they do have the ability to record external RAW to an Atomos Ninja V, and its autofocus is okay, but its colors and the look of the camera, especially when you get that footage and you're done with it, it's pretty awesome. So from that standpoint, it's on par with a company like Canon, for an example, when it comes to their color science and the look of the footage that you get when you actually export it. Nikon really didn't make waves with its last top-of-the-line DSLR. So it looks like right now they're going to change that with their mirrorless camera, the Z9, which they're showing slow snippets of video, one after another, basically letting you know what the camera can do. But its latest snippet that I saw today was the fact that it recorded amazing footage in 8K for over an hour. And that's a selling point. Why? Because, well, let's make fun of other manufacturers, especially Canon and its R5, with the fact that it records 8K, but then it has overheating limitations. Now, Sony has, of course, released their top-of-the-line mirrorless camera with the A1, and the A1 can actually record 8K with almost no overheating. But conceptually, if you're outside in the sun, it's been reported here and there, if you're in very hot temperatures, that the camera will eventually overheat on you. Though the time that it'll take to cool down and then record again isn't very long at all, but it would still have the possibility of overheating on you. Well, with this advertisement, Nikon is saying you could be out in the Sahara Desert with this camera recording for over an hour and you're not going to overheat in all eye, which is pretty cool. That's a lot of 8K. That's a lot of memory card space. And no one really talks about memory card space too often when it comes to these cameras. Now, I've got the R5. The R5 can record really compressed 8K video that's whose bitrate is comparable to those of 4K video, all the way up to 8K RAW, which takes gigabytes per minute, which is insane. The cost of having that memory, the cost of doing all of that, is it really worth it for 8K with that higher resolution? To the point where you're recording over an hour's worth of 8K. I guess it really depends on the shooter. So speaking of like when you're out in like the jungle or capturing wildlife, being able to record wildlife with a zoom lens and get that higher resolution quality so you could punch in for hours at a time, I can see the value in that. So in that particular scenario, when you're in the jungle and you're recording like that for documentary film work, yeah, I can see where the Nikon comes in. But I will be totally transparent. I wouldn't see myself personally in that shooting scenario. If I wanted to shoot long recording scenarios, it would be mostly for like presentations or performances. And in that sense, if I wanted to record 8K RAW for those type of situations, I find myself able to do that if I really wanted to. But the amount of hard drive space that would entail is crazy. So it's not just overheating that concerns us. It's the file size that concerns us. So what I would actually want to know is what's the bit rate and the bit rate options of the Z9, because that would matter. Because if you want really high quality footage, give us a high bit rate. We'll take care of the memory. But if we just need high resolution and it doesn't really have to be that high quality when it comes to a bit rate, and we're not going to play with the colors in post, we just want the footage and need the footage in a very high resolution so we can punch in, give us a lower bitrate. Canon R5 does give you those bitrate options from RAW all the way down to like IPB Lite, which is a very comparable bitrate, just as I said. And that's the reason why I record everything in 8K, at least right now, is because I have the option to choose the bitrate and my shooting style. I'm able to record little snippets of 8K here and there and actually record it in RAW and not worry about space too much, because per project I'm not recording too much over an hour, and I have a 1 terabyte CF Express card in this camera. And I also have a 512 gigabyte SD card. So the greatness of the R5, which unfortunately you don't get off of most cameras, in fact, any camera that I know of, is that I can record a 4K proxy file at the same time that I'm recording 8K RAW. What this means is that I have the option to, if I want, edit just the 4K file and use a 4K file. If not, and if I have a beefier system next to me and I really need that detail, I have the 8K file. 2 different file types at the same time recorded in this camera, which is why normally I will choose 8K with 4K proxy and just record that way, because in post I can decide what resolution without wasting too much time, because I already have the file there. And if I want to just have a file that I can use and really not put too much color grading into it, I have the 4K file, which can be up to 10-bit 422 4K proxy right out of the gate. So I still have some flexibility off of that 4K file and have the option to use the 8K RAW file. So that is amazing. Or if I wanted to use 8K but on a slightly slower machine, I could, because I immediately have a 4K proxy and I could work with it, and it's absolutely amazing. Those camera options and those options to be able to choose what I want to do matter a lot more to me than recording over an hour's worth of 8K, which some people would want it, some people would need it, but in my particular shooting style, no. For example, these shots that I'm showing you right now, I went to a gaming convention for my gaming channel. You're subscribed to that too. I'll leave the link down below. I was there and I was recording myself taking part in a tournament. And in that tournament, everything was recorded in 8K RAW with 4K proxy backup. And what that allowed me to do, first of all, it was all day, and I didn't run out of space because I didn't record too much footage. I didn't have to. I recorded when I wanted to, and that's it. And I was still able to tell a story. At the beginning of the day, I probably will only need 4K. That's fine. But the person who was actually helping me record, he recorded one particular part of the tournament while standing at a distance so that he can get the shot of me and of the shot of the screen that I was actually playing. But then I wanted to punch in on that screen to actually show the action that was happening. Well, because I had the 8K recording, which I didn't think I was going to use at first, I was able to punch in and not lose that detail of what was going on that really tiny screen. So it really kind of actually saved me in post. So I'm actually editing the whole project in 8K on my beefy machine, which can edit 8K with no problem. And then just kind of going from there. So to me, it's not just the 8K file and no overheating, though that's a plus. So kudos to you, Nikon, for doing that. But we all expect that even Canon's top of the line camera, hopefully the R1 when it's announced and released, will be able to do that too. This is Canon's mid-range camera, and it's able to do 8K, which Sony didn't do, which no one else did at all either at this price range. So I think that's kind of where Canon stands far from the pack, is that they gave you a slightly cheaper option with limitations, but you still have this flexibility when it comes to file types. So again, it's not just the fact that you can record 8K, it's the file types. Yes, we all know that the Canon file types are difficult to edit with depending on your PC. I personally have not had much of an issue, but my PC in itself is pretty beefy. So when I'm editing on my laptop, I tend to edit off of the 4K proxy files, and that's it, not use the 8K files. And they work pretty well. The 4K IPB Lite files edit easily off my less beefy machine. But of course, if I was going to edit the RAW files, I'm using my beefy machine, which also uses an RTX 3070 Ti from NVIDIA, which is hard to get these days. So yeah, I kind of overpaid for it, but it's because I wanted to edit easily. But I at least have that option, and having the option is what I would like. It would be nice if they can edit as fast as Sony. Sony files are really easy to edit with, so I like those. But what's Nikon going to give you? What file types will it give you for the 8K? Will you be able to work with it smoothly, especially since it's all I? And how flexible will it be? I think that really matters if you're going to push video that much, or if you're just going to say, yeah, it doesn't overheat, and that's it. Come on. For less of a price, or for a very comparable price, you can get the R5 and an Atomos Ninja V Plus. It's still pretty pricey, but that combination will give you unlimited 8K recording, unlimited 4K HQ recording. So you still have that option on the Canon side, and have even more flexibility when it comes to the bitrate and the file types that you use to edit with. So if they're going to say, we don't overheat as well, then come to the table with something else, because right now for me, what matters most is my ability not only to choose my file type, but at the very least, I enjoy recording in RAW format. And right now, no other hybrid camera lets you record RAW internally besides the Canon. Right now I'm recording in RAW on the Blackmagic, but it's not a hybrid camera. It's a cinema camera. And in that's a whole different ballpark. Those are just my thoughts. What do you guys think of what I had to say? Does the bitrate matter to you as much as it matters to me? And overheating, what do you think about Nikon's play? Let me know in the comments down below. And as always, like, share, and you can make my day if you subscribe today. This is Magnus, and I'm out. See you guys next time.